Plants are amazing organisms. Like most animals, most plants are multicellular. They have millions of cells working together to form specialized structures that allow the plant as a whole to live, move, and grow. But unlike animals, which need to eat food in order to live, plants can make their own food through a process called photosynthesis. Photosynthesis occurs in an organelle called a chloroplast. While all plants perform photosynthesis, not all plant cells have chloroplasts. Leaf cells contain lots of chloroplasts, making leaves the primary location in the plant where photosynthesis occurs. During photosynthesis, water from the ground and carbon dioxide from the air are moved into leaf cells. The atoms of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are rearranged into molecules of glucose and oxygen. But unlike the carbon dioxide and water that move into the plant, glucose contains high-energy bonds. The energy in glucose's high-energy bonds has to come from somewhere, and that's why plants need sunlight. In order to make the high-energy bonds in glucose, the plant transforms sunlight energy into chemical energy. Without sunlight, the plant cannot get the energy needed to build the bonds in glucose. It takes 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 6 molecules of water to make 1 molecule of glucose and 6 molecules of oxygen. The glucose that is made is used by the plant to grow or for energy, but the oxygen is released into the atmosphere. The whole point of photosynthesis is to make glucose. Like all biomolecules, glucose is organic. This means it has matter, atoms of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, as well as chemical energy in the form of high-energy carbon-to-carbon and carbon-to-hydrogen bonds. Once the glucose is made, the plant can either use the matter in glucose to grow or the bonds in glucose for energy. Plants are made of biomolecules such as lipids, which make up their cell membranes, carbohydrates, which make up their cell walls, and proteins, which perform jobs like signaling the plant to turn towards the sun. During biosynthesis, the plant can use the atoms from glucose to make lipids and other types of carbohydrates, because lipids and carbohydrates are made of just carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But to make proteins, the plant cells need other atoms, such as nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus. These additional atoms are found in soil minerals that the plants absorb through their roots. But no matter what biomolecule the plant needs, it has to start with glucose, and this means photosynthesis is the first step in plant growth. Photosynthesis creates the glucose that can then be used to make all the other biomolecules that the plant needs to make more leaves, stem, and roots. As plants grow, they gain mass. But because most of the mass of the plant comes from photosynthesis, the atoms that make up plant parts come primarily from the carbon dioxide in the air. But the plant doesn't just use the glucose from photosynthesis for growth. It also uses glucose for energy. Lots of people think that plants get energy from the sun, and this is partially true. But plants cannot use sunlight energy directly. Instead, the sunlight energy is transformed into chemical energy, and then the chemical energy can be transformed into kinetic energy that the plant uses to stay alive. Photosynthesis transforms sunlight energy into chemical energy by using the sunlight energy to make the high-energy carbon-to-carbon and carbon-to-hydrogen bonds in glucose. Glucose stores chemical energy in its high-energy bonds. Just like animal cells, plant cells have mitochondria, organelles that perform cellular respiration. Mitochondria are nicknamed the powerhouse of the cell because these organelles transform the chemical energy from glucose into energy the cells can use to stay alive. Mitochondria don't make energy, they just transform it. Inside the mitochondria, where the cellular respiration occurs, glucose and oxygen are rearranged into carbon dioxide and water. Cellular respiration requires oxygen, so plants breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, just like animals when they do cellular respiration. During cellular respiration, the high-energy bonds in glucose are rearranged into low-energy bonds in carbon dioxide and water. The chemical energy in the glucose is transformed into energy that can be used by the plant cells. So let's recap. During the day, when there's plenty of sunlight available, the plant is able to perform photosynthesis to make glucose. Photosynthesis takes in carbon dioxide and water and produces glucose and oxygen. Glucose is a biomolecule that contains atoms of carbon, oxygen, and hydrogen. Photosynthesis only occurs during the day because sunlight energy is required to form the high-energy carbon-to-carbon and carbon-to-hydrogen bonds in glucose. Once the plant has glucose, it can use the glucose either for growth or for energy. In order to grow, the plant uses glucose to build other biomolecules. This process is called biosynthesis. Glucose contains all the atoms needed to make carbohydrates and lipids, but proteins contain other atoms, such as nitrogen, that the plant absorbs from the soil. Biosynthesis occurs constantly as the plant needs to make biomolecules to live and grow. And while biosynthesis occurs constantly, cellular respiration also occurs constantly. In order to stay alive, plants need energy. During photosynthesis, plants store energy in the bonds of glucose molecules. When the plant cells need energy, they break down glucose into water and carbon dioxide through the process of cellular respiration. So now we know that plants do photosynthesis to make their own food. The food can be used for energy or so the plant can grow. So next time you see a plant, think of all of the things that it's doing that you cannot see just to stay alive.